So what I did here, just to show you quickly, is I decided basically to do this method. This method, right, where I'm going to get rid of the number in front of the bracket so that I'm just left with the bracket. But before I could do that, let's focus, please. Before I could do that, I also had to remove, I had to get rid of that minus 2. Okay, so that's what I did first. I will write another method down now, which you guys probably did. I just wanted to show you another way of doing it. So what's the opposite of minusing 2? Adding 2, right? So now you have negative 2, which was there, plus that 2, which is 0. And now, guys, if you just have this, just one bracket on the one side, no variables or brackets on the other side, you can just divide the other side by this negative 2, right? That's the first method that we looked at. Now, what is 0 divided by anything? 0. Now, what's the opposite of adding 4? Subtracting 4. Okay, so we end up with n equals negative 4. Now, just in case you guys did it in the method where you multiply the bracket off first, you would have said negative 2n minus 8 minus 2 is equal to negative 2. Right, if you multiply that negative 2 by n, you get negative 2n. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. There is that negative 2, there is that negative 2, right? Then you would have negative 2n. On the other side, you had a negative 2 already. What's the opposite of subtracting 8? Adding 8. And then what is the opposite of subtracting 2? Adding 2. Okay, so we have a negative 2n. Let's work this out, guys. What's negative 2 plus 8? 6, okay? Plus another 2, 8. Okay, what's the opposite of multiplying by negative 2? Dividing by negative 2. So let's say 8 is 8, 8 divided by negative 2. You can write the symbol also if you wanted to. And what is that, guys? What is 8 divided by negative 2? It's 4. Okay, so either one of those is fine. Any questions on that one? We got n equals negative 4 for that one. Okay, good. You got something wrong? Just check where you went wrong, guys. Like I said yesterday, it's very easy to forget to change those operations, right? It's a very common mistake. And you really need to focus on that, guys. Whenever you are doing something on the other side, it has to be the opposite operation of what it is. Okay. Or number 6. Number 6 was like the questions that we did earlier, where you just need to get the W equal to everything else. So what's the opposite of adding 5? Subtracting 5. So 8 minus 5 is 3. Now guys, here, what am I doing with the 6? I am dividing by the 6. On the other side, I have 2 times by the 6. So the number that you had there already was 3, and then 3 times 6 is 18. Okay, that's a 2-mark question, guys. Just remember. Number 10. Here we go. This is a much longer one. Maybe you can leave out some mistakes, okay? Just a reminder, guys, whenever you have a bracket on both sides, you have to multiply the bracket off. Okay, you don't have a choice. If you have a bracket and a variable just on one side, you don't have to multiply the bracket off. You can move stuff away. But if you have a bracket on the left and on the right, especially if there's a variable in those brackets, right? You have to multiply them off. So that will be the first mark always, guys, just for multiplying the bracket off. Okay, so 2 times p is 2p, 2 times 4 is 8. Here we have negative 4 times p is negative 4p, and negative 4 times positive 25 is negative 100. Now, what's the opposite of adding 8? Subtracting 8. So you still have that negative 4 there, you still have that negative 100, but now you have a negative 8 as well. Negative 100 minus 8 is negative 100. What is the opposite of, because there's a minus in front of this 4p, this is subtracting 4p, right? What's the opposite of subtracting 4p? Adding 4p. We already have a 2p there, plus 4p is 6p, and that is equal to the number that was in negative 1. Now here I'm multiplying by 6, so I have to divide by 6. Negative 108 divided by 6 is negative 18. Any question on that one? As your test is no calculator. I'm asking me to calculate the full test. So you will not even be allowed to have a calculator on your desk, like in the past. So maybe a calculation like this. We've also they don't give you very big numbers to work with, difficult stuff, because this isn't really what we're testing. We're not really testing, you know what 108 divided by 6 is, right? We're actually testing, can you solve an equation? Yeah. So one person says that then everyone in the department needs to look at it, work through it, comment on it, and then the head of the department looks at all the comments and the suggestions and decides how to change it. Okay. So it's not just one person that fixes it and goes out. We all get a chance to comment on it. Okay. Okay, here we go. So it's me. Similar thing, guys, bracket on both sides, so you have to multiply out. Okay, 7 times 8 is 78. 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. On the other side, you had a negative 14 times 1 is negative 14 again, and negative 14 times z is negative 14 z. Now, the opposite of subtracting 14 is adding 14. So over there. Right? I think it's easy to get confused if you have the same number on both sides, right? Because here we have a negative 14 and there we have a negative 14. So you need to just be careful there. You need to leave the negative 14 that was there, and then you add 14 because of that one there. Okay. And minus 14 there. Alright, what's negative 14 plus 14? 0. Okay? So that, those two numbers there, is going to be 0. Then you have a minus 14 there over there. What's the opposite of subtracting 14 there? Adding 14 there. 7z plus 14z is 21z. That's equal to 0, right? That's the number that we had from up there. So we carry it all the way down. And now here I'm multiplying by 21. On the other side, I have to divide by 21. So 0 divided by 21 is just 0. Any questions on that one? Okay, there is number 14. If I'm going too fast, we can just have an answer to look at a specific question afterwards. 14 is there. There was just one bracket here, guys, but now there were variables on both sides. Right? Remember in yesterday's note we wrote, if there are variables or brackets on both sides, then you have to multiply your brackets off. Okay, so even though there's just a bracket on the one side, there's a variable on that side, so that means I have to multiply the bracket off. Okay, you have to remember that, guys. So we have a negative 2, now negative 3, we must multiply there, and by 1. And then we had our Q. But guys, what I did here is I just decided to simplify this, to just add these two while subtracting. Negative 2 minus 3q is negative 4q. Right, that's what I did there. So I didn't actually do opposite operations at all from the second line to the third. And then I decided, okay, now let's move this negative 3. What's the opposite of minus 3? Adding 3. Okay, so I didn't actually do any opposite operations here, guys. So maybe for this line, you still have negative q minus 3q equals 2q plus 3. That's fine, you still have that. Okay, if you didn't simplify to negative 4q like I did, that's okay. All right, so this line is just fine. Then in the next line, this is a plus in front of this 2q, right? Even though it's not written there. So what's the opposite of adding 2q? Subtracting 2q. So I had my negative 4q minus 2q, but it's fine if you had this. If you didn't simplify like I did, then you would have that line, which is fine. Negative q minus 3q minus 2q equal to 3. And now here you would have to work this out, right? Negative q minus 3q is negative 4q minus another 2, negative 6q equal to 3. On this side, I am multiplying by negative 6. On the other side, I would have to divide by negative 6. Okay? Is this the simplest form, guys? 3 over negative 6. No, firstly that minus will go in front, right? But then also 3 can go into the top and the bottom. So we have to simplify that. 3 over 6 is a half, right? Okay, so you need to write that as negative. Okay, any questions on number 14? Number 15 was the most difficult because there were 3 brackets, so there was a lot of algebra going on there. But I think that you guys are getting a bit better at it, right? Because you're practicing it more and more, it will eventually get a bit easier. So guys, we have multiple brackets here, right? On both sides, variables on both sides. You definitely have to multiply your brackets out. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 2 is 10. Then here you have a negative 2 that you must multiply into that bracket. What's a negative times a negative? Positive, and 2 times x is 2x. Negative 2 times positive 3 is negative 6. Equals. So guys, does this 5 have anything to do with this bracket? No, so you're just going to write it again. Okay, please don't think, oh, I must multiply the 5 into the bracket as well. The 5 is completely separate from the bracket. You guys see this plus? Remember that a plus divides terms. So 5 is a term on its own. And 3 in this bracket is another term. Okay, so if you multiply that 5 into that bracket, it's wrong. Okay, the 5 is completely separate from the bracket. So there you put your 5 plus 3 times x is 3x and 3 times 1 is 3. Okay, so a lot of multiplying out before we can actually start getting rid of things. And what I did, guys, because there was so much going on here, I thought, let's make it easier, let's simplify first. Okay, so look what happened here. On this side, 5x plus 2x is 7x. You guys agree with that? Right? Those are like terms, 5x and 2x. So I just simplified that, 7x. And then I had 10 minus 6, which is just 4. Okay, I think this is, if you have just 2 terms here, as opposed to 4 terms, I think it's less inclined to make a mistake, to get confused, to maybe forget about a number. So if you have a whole bunch of terms, guys, you have to multiply out like 3 or 4 brackets, and you have a whole bunch of terms. Rather simplify them here. Okay, just make it a bit easier going forward. And then on this side, we have a 3x, but we also have a 5 plus 3, which I just added together. Okay, you see, this is a bit easy to work with than that. Right? There's so many terms there. I think it's very easy to forget about a number or an x. Right, so then I said, what's the opposite of adding 4? Subtraction. 8 minus 4 is 4. Okay, what is the opposite of adding 3x? Subtracting 3. So 7x minus 3x is 4. And now what is the opposite of multiplying by 4? Dividing by 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. Does anyone get x equals 1 to this one? Okay. So because there's 3 brackets, I'll probably give a mark for multiplying out on this side and a mark on that side. Mark for that 4. the bottom of that 4x, and then put your. Fine. Okay, new notes. New notes.